And then in 1742, in the little kingdom of Gurkha, which is to the west, northwest of Kathmandu, a man called Prithvi Narayan Sai came to the throne. Prithvi Narayan's family had been there since the 1500s. They had been Rajputs who'd fled from the Mughals. And Prithvi Narayan Sai was a great man. He was a man with a vision. And his vision was to take all these little states, these little feuding fiefdoms, and unite them all into one country. Now, this wasn't an original idea. Other people had thought of it before. Little states that were a bit stronger than their neighbors had marched into the next door state, killed all the men, enslaved the women, eaten all the goats, and 5 years later there'd be a rising and they'd all be thrown out again. And Prithvi Narayan said, we will take you over, but we will not change the law. We will not change anything. We will not enslave you. We will not kill you. We will simply take you over. And instead of paying tax to the Raja of Taplejung or whoever, you will pay tax to me. And this was something new. This was quite extraordinary. And he started to absorb all these other little kingdoms. He himself didn't see the final unification into what is now Nepal, but his sons carried it on after him. Some of his methods wouldn't necessarily meet the approval of the United Nations Commissioner for Human Rights. On one occasion, he sent a message to the Raja of Tansen, which was not very far away, saying, would you care to join me in my great crusade for a national polity? And the Raja of Tansen said, no, thank you very much. So Prithvi Narayan said, well, why don't you come along and discuss it with me? And the Raja of Tansen and his entourage trekked across Nepal into Gurkha, climbed up to Prithvi Narayan's Durbar, his palace, which is still there. There's no road up to it. You have to walk all the way up this hill. There is a helipad on the top. You're only allowed to use that if you're the king of Nepal. Now, there is no king of Nepal, so quite who's allowed to use it, I don't know. But the Raja of Tansen flogged his way all up the hill, and as he came in through the door, Prithvi Narayan's soldiers fell on him and slaughtered him. And they sent another message back to the Darbar, to the government in Tansen, and said, now would you like to reconsider? The reason they were able to do this was not only did Prithvi Narayan not alter the laws of the states that he took over, he simply said, you pay the tax to me and not to whoever you were paying it to before, but also because he had a regular army. Now, this was extraordinary. This was most unusual for the time. Nobody had professional armies. You called up an army when you needed it, which was usually an untrained, badly disciplined, pretty poorly armed rabble. And if your rabble was a bit better than the next door chap's rabble, you probably won. Prithvi Narayan had a regular army, a proper army that was paid and organized. And of course, this is the point, it had to be paid. Now, the only source of revenue at this time was land tax. It wasn't revenue from anything else. Nepal didn't have any coal or gold or precious spices or anything like that. It was land tax. So the land tax paid the army. But as he conquers more and more land, of course, he needs more and more soldiers to hold that land. And therefore, he needs more and more money to pay them. So therefore, he needs more and more land. So the whole thing is a spiral. You capture more land to raise more money, but you need more soldiers to hold it. Therefore, you need more land to pay those soldiers. And they expanded and they expanded and they expanded. They took over Sikkim in the east and Garhwal in the west. They even invaded Tibet at one stage. There was a bit of a problem here because the Gurkha army wore red jackets and white belts, and for some extraordinary reason gave their orders in English. Now, presumably this is because they were copying what the East India Company was doing in India. But the result was a very stiff note from the Chinese emperor to the British government saying, why have you invaded my country? And the British had to say, it's not us, nothing to do with us. It's these Gurkhas, nothing to do with us. For a while, the Emperor of China actually paid tribute to the King of Nepal until he realized just quite how tiny Nepal was. And eventually, of course, population and money won, and the Gurkhas pulled back into Nepal. So where are we going to go next? We have to go somewhere. We've got to keep raising revenue to pay the soldiers. Well, the only place we can go is to go south, where the cattle and the women are fat, and anything you throw into the ground just grows up just like that. And this, of course, meant that they invaded India, which brought them into conflict with the British in the form of the East India Company.